Well, welcome everyone. That was a bit of a taster for what's to come over the next couple of hours. Welcome on behalf of Uniting Communities and Community Centres SA to what is our second workshop on ending loneliness. We didn't quite end it a year ago when we first got together, so we're back again today to continue that discussion. You've always got to be worried when you cough these days, don't you? Everybody looks at you and thinks, God, has he got it? Has he not? I'm fine, I can assure you. So welcome to today's forum. Can I start by doing an acknowledgement of country? We are so fortunate to be able to share this glorious land that is the land of the Kaurna people, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and to acknowledge the spiritual relationship that the First Australians have with the land and sea that we all get to enjoy. And can I also note that this land was never ceded. This is Aboriginal land, always has been, always will be. So, welcome everyone. When we met a year ago, Mark just reminded me it was 51 weeks when we actually had our last and our first, in fact, ending loneliness workshop. And we explored quite a range of issues on that day. And it's been interesting over the last year. We obviously acknowledged that issues of COVID, and particularly the impacts of people having to quarantine and being increasingly disconnected, was having an increased impact on the well-being of our community and was increasing the experience of isolation and loneliness for many in the community. Uniting Communities, interestingly enough, started a research project pretty much on the week that COVID broke out. That was not fortuitous, it was just coincidental. We had been interested, and not just interested, I guess more deeply we were concerned that loneliness as an issue had been having a profound impact on many in our community. But this is not just a South Australian issue, it's not just a national issue, it's an international issue. And we wanted to capture and get a sense of just how widespread the issue of loneliness was across the community. And so we commissioned some market research, which we've continued throughout the last 2 years. So it's been interesting to sort of commence at the outbreak of COVID in Australia and then be able to monitor this over that couple of years. And I just want to share a couple of bits of information, and we don't want to, in a sense, overburden you with information as part of our discussions today, because I figure most of you in the room have got a deep commitment to this issue and are here because you believe that it's an issue, a public health issue, that we all need to be taking some collective responsibility for. We're going to have an opportunity a little later in the morning to actually hear some solutions, not just from you and some of the experts who will be talking and presenting today, but also from 4 politicians. And just to reflect on that, some of you may have heard some of the discussion this morning on ABC Radio, if you were up early enough. And one of the politicians, and I won't be a spoiler and sort of announce what he's going to announce this morning in terms of their party's response to this. But the remark I wanted to make in relation to that was that it did actually instigate quite an interesting debate as you get on talkback, or at least people being able to phone in or text into that station. And what it, I think, highlighted for me was this sort of challenge we have to continue to elevate this issue of loneliness as a significant and growing public health issue within the community, because a number of people were saying, yes, it's maybe an issue, but surely it's just an individual issue. What have governments or communities got to do with it? It's something that people should actually address themselves. And I want to just reflect on that for 1 sec, because I think that is one of the fundamental challenges we all have collectively. If we're wanting to actually get traction on this issue, and you all understand what impacts it has, and I think that the first workshop we shared a lot of information, you shared a lot of information about what those health impacts were, and some of those sort of analogies is about being equivalent to having, smoking a pack of cigarettes a day or whatever, in terms of the health impacts, the direct health impacts, physical health impacts it has on people. But of course you all know what those mental health impacts are as well. But if we know it's a really significant issue, we've got a big job to do to actually get that message out more broadly and understood more broadly, as well as talking about what some of those solutions are. And I know that's what we're all sort of keen to do, is to talk about the solutions that we can help to initiate and drive as a community and as organisations with a responsibility for this topic within the community. So just back very briefly to the information. This first slide I find sort of interesting because, you know, at one level I think there's been a lot of talk about the impacts of COVID on the community in terms of the mental health impacts in particular. We were just measuring loneliness and a number of dimensions of loneliness, and clearly there has been an increase over that period of people who are reporting that they either felt lonely often or sometimes, and the top line is a combination of those two factors. There's been, you know, an increase over that 2-year period, but it hasn't ballooned out. Now, you can take whatever message you want from that, but for me, the key message is that the problem existed well before COVID. You know, we had more than 50% of the population who were indicating that for them, they were experiencing loneliness sometimes or often, and that was an issue for them. So this is not a new problem. It's not a problem that is the product of COVID. It is a deeply entrenched issue within our community, and an issue that we need to actually pay attention to. The second slide I just want to show is, and we're going to be having 2 breakout sessions after morning tea, after we've heard from our politicians and we've grilled them. So get your questions ready. Well, you better listen to them first, but I'm sure you've got some questions ready to pose to them anyway. But we're going to have 2 breakout sessions after our morning tea break. One in this room, which will be focusing on some of the solutions and particularly the role of connectors, and we'll have here a number of case studies. The other one will be focusing on a particular demographic, young people. And this particular chart might be a little surprising to some of you, because I think for many of us intuitively we felt that loneliness was a product of people being disconnected from the community as they age, particularly as they lose partners and loved ones, come out of the workforce and are often at home alone. And it is a significant issue for that cohort in the community. But what this chart shows to us is that, you know, and this was repeated throughout all of the surveys that we've done, it was young people overwhelmingly who were the group that were most impacted by loneliness. So as a result of that, one of our workshops today will be focusing specifically on that group and some of the solutions to address loneliness for young people. So those are the only 2 bits of information I wanted to share with you, and now we're going to actually kick off with the first of our guest speakers.